Following program contains language and subject matter that you may consider unsuitable for children. Parental discretion is advised.
Greetings, Earthling. His Highness the Jackal.
The Jackal.
I'm going to pass the reins to Mr. Jackal, the new king of radio.
I think Jackal's Latino. I'm not sure.
The Jackal.
Welcome one, welcome all to another exciting episode of Inside the Jackal's Head. Right here live on psn-radio.com on this beautiful February 9th, 2020. We're going to have a great show tonight. A very serious topic on the second hour with our guest. And this is something that I've been binging on all week. And I can't believe that this has gone under the radar. We're going to have Mitchell Nicholas Gerber on the show. Now, Mitchell is somebody who I just came into contact recently, and I didn't know much about him. I didn't know much about what he was researching for a very long time now. And it's one of those things that where when you look at what's happening in China now with the coronavirus and all this stuff that's happening over there, you start to wonder, well, could that the whole thing be staged almost to kind of, and I'm not saying there's not an actual outbreak, but to kind of hide and fudge numbers of some of the people that have gone missing due to organ transplants that are taking place over there on an illegal basis, and they're doing it on grounds really of what's considered at this point, with all the many people that have supposedly died. This is genocide, folks. We're talking about organ harvesting in China tonight with Mitchell, and this is something very, very serious again. And this is dealing with what seems to be a very peaceful community in China. And now I'm going to let him really tell the story. I don't want to jump into it because he knows it a lot better than I do. And he knows this group a lot better. Now, the community is called the Falun Gong. And basically, they're labeled a cult by the Chinese government. And, cults are not exactly a fun thing to deal with. But every religious movement, every spiritual movement is kind of a cult in a sense. Christianity, Buddhism, Muslim, no matter what the religion is, they all kind of start in a cult kind of movement. I don't know if maybe that is why the Falun Gong is looked at by the Chinese as such a dangerous cult, or maybe it has more to do with the communist nature of China. Now, from what I've been able to read and kind of understand from, my limited knowledge of the Falun Gong, is that they're an ancient Chinese spiritual discipline, and the Falun Gong is nothing brand new. It's a spiritual discipline in the Buddhist tradition, and it's pronounced Falun Gong. I probably mispronounced it there a couple times. Falun Gong. It consists of moral teachings and meditation of 4 gentle exercises that are, from, everything I've seen and from just looking at videos online, it's a unique and highly effective way to improve your health and energy levels. Seems innocent, right? Now, at the core of the Falun Gong are the values of truthfulness, compassion, tolerance, and it teaches that these are the most fundamental qualities of the universe, and takes them to a guide of daily life and practice. And I saw the founder, Mr. Li Hongzai. He was trying to simulate the highest qualities of the universe through truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance. And those are the foundations of the practice. As he puts it, practice is guided by these supreme qualities and based on the very laws which underlie the development of the cosmos. So, this is something that's dealing with spirituality. Again, it's dealing with meditation. They seem like a very peaceful bunch. So why is the Chinese government, for a couple decades now at least, or several decades, trying to not only get rid of them? Now, mind you, this is from all accounts at least 100 million followers of the Falun Gong are out there. And while the Chinese government has kind of like signaled them out and done what they've done is really just bizarre, it's criminal. There's doctors that are coming forward saying yes, they've worked on folks that have been taken by the government and used in experiments and used for like very notorious things, and even, you know, like I said, organ harvesting. And a lot of times these are done with people that are wide awake. You know, they're alive, basically, so they're being murdered. It's not like you're working on people that are dead. You know, these people are being literally killed for their organs. And anytime somebody who's rich, has money, you know, wants to go to China to get an organ, hey, you know, it's available. Why is that? Well, this could be a reason. Now, this also, with the coronavirus, this could be a way to fudge numbers and say that a lot of these people that have been missing due to the Falun Gong, you know, genocide that's been going on, I have a feeling that maybe some of those numbers from the coronavirus might be some of these victims. They might be kind of like labeled in there as, you know, victims of the coronavirus, when really they might be victims of the Chinese government enacting this genocide on this innocent community, which again seems very peaceful. They're meditating, they're trying to get spiritually aware, you know, or awakened through the awareness of spirituality and truthfulness, and seeing, you know, things that we on the western side of the world would see as peaceful. I mean, these guys were not like Waco, Texas, and the bunch of idiots and all those guys. We're doing nothing but, you know, teaching really corrupt, weird things. I mean, David Koresh was not a gentle guy. Let's be honest. Those, you know, people that came out of Waco alive, told a really interesting story of who he was, what he was doing, as he was practicing in pedophilia and all kinds of different things. And, you know, I don't want to get too deep into that. That's an entire show in itself. But it was tragic to see what was going on in Waco and how that ended up. And now this, I mean, this is a lot worse from the accounts of how many people are in Falun Gong. That community has suffered through the Chinese government. Mind you, the government over there is very secretive of what they're doing, their practices, and all the stuff that they do to their people. So when you see the outside, you know, from the outside, it looks very, you know, one-viewed, one-sided. But when you start looking at the stories that are coming out, from, you know, this to the coronavirus to, you know, a host of other things that I've seen coming out of China, we know it's a communist country, but the things they're doing to their own people is beyond criminal. I mean, if the United Nations doesn't get involved, I don't know. I mean, what are they even around for? What's the purpose of having the United Nations if they don't take a look at that and put their foot down? You know, you want to talk about ending corruption around the world. That's a big case of corruption. If you're taking a community of innocent people that are meditating and trying to become spiritually awakened or aware or whatever they're doing, you know, they're literally just sitting around meditating and, you know, passing peaceful knowledge to their community. If you take those folks and you start, like, you know, carving them up for their organs and committing genocide and atrocities like this, I mean, I understand it's a communist country, but I mean, to what point does this go unchecked or unseen by the United Nations or any other body out there that can put their foot down and say, listen, you know, what are you doing? I mean, I'm surprised this is a practice that's been going on for so long, which again brings to question not only China as a government, but, you know, people that might be behind this all over the world. I mean, this is a problem that's probably happening in not only China, but in a lot of other countries. I mean, look, the movie Hostel that came out years ago probably depicted something that's really happening, where the human trafficking is happening. We know that. And there ended up in places like, you know, in places like what happened in Hostel. And now we know that this is happening here in China. And again, it's something that I didn't know about until I became aware recently. And I mean, I can't wait to have Mitchell on the line here, and we can really hear from his end and what he's researched. I mean, he's been at this for a long time. And I thank him for really making me aware of everything that's happening in China when it comes to this problem, because this is a major issue. And he's on Skype waiting to be here at 11. Can't wait to have him on. Now, there's a couple things, of course, have happened this week from the impeachment finally over. So going into a little bit of Trump news. That's been done with and over with now, and thankfully we don't have to look forward to that for at least another 2 weeks until Nancy Pelosi and the scumbags on the Congress decide to impeach him for like taking a crap or something. I don't know. Now, more recently than that, we had the firing of Alexander Vindman, the lieutenant colonel and leaker in charge of the entire hoax against the president. And this gentleman, and I use that term very loosely, is finally given the boot from the White House, which comes really to no surprise to anybody. Look, if you're going to be on a phone call like that, first of all, you can't leak that kind of a phone call. That's two presidents speaking, one from the United States, which is your boss, and one from Ukraine, which is a duly just recently elected president. And, both of them are kind of new at this. And, you can't take your opinion, right? Because your job is to oversee a call, set some talking points, whatever. If the president, who is the one who sets policy, decides to go off script and say, hey, you know what? There was corruption in Ukraine in 2016. You ran on the platform of anti-corruption. Look into that. Look into all these other things that are happening, because we don't want that to happen again. And there's an old saying, and this goes way back before Trump was elected. You learn from history or you're bound to repeat it. And Trump is trying not to repeat that with the upcoming 2020 election, which is in a few months. So, if he brings that up, who cares? I don't find that as a big deal. Even if he talks about, the whole Joe Biden thing, CrowdStrike, the fact that he's bringing these things up from 2016 and is trying to avoid meddling in the 2020 election, it's telling you that Trump is not the problem here. The problem is that 2016 was not only meddled in maybe by the Russians, the Chinese, Ukraine, who knows who else was involved in meddling in that campaign of that election. Now you have a guy like Zelensky or whatever, the Ukraine president, who comes in and he runs on anti-corruption. That's a platform that he ran on. So when he's talking to President Trump, of course he's going to mention it. It's only natural. And as the president, again, he has the right to set policy. So when Vindman opens his big mouth and tells his twin brother, tells his dad, tells the whistleblower, by the way, I don't care. Eric, I'll call him Cinderella, but it's really Caramello, whatever his name is, Caramello, whatever his name is. The whistleblower. He tells him who concocts the entire thing with Adam Schiff. And the entire thing goes down in history as the biggest scam that we've probably ever seen in Congress. I want to say probably in the entire White House. I mean, in the history of the White House, in the history of presidents in this country, I don't think we've ever seen anything quite like that. I really don't. Not only did he leak a perfectly fine phone call, when he got to Adam Schiff, we all saw, the Schiff show did in Congress. He did his own spin on the whole thing and spun it out of control and made up, funny talking points and all kinds of things, and made it sound like it was some mobster talking to Zelensky, and made it seem like Trump was kind of like some mafia guy. Like, look here, see, and I'm only going to say this 7 times to prove a point. He never says anything 7 times in that call. I mean, it was like, hey, congratulations, congratulations, and, that whole thing that happened in 2016? Yeah, you might want to look into that. Yeah. I mean, if you're going to impeach a guy, at least, have him with some semen on a dress. I'm just saying, it was the worst articles of impeachment. And then you have, of course, nasty Nancy Pelosi on the background during the State of the Union, which was an amazing State of the Union, by the way. And you have her tearing up the documents. I mean, really? I mean, I know she's bitter. I know she's angry. I know she doesn't like President Trump. But to tear up those documents, first of all, there's laws, because those are official documents. That you see that binder they're in. Those are official government documents handed to her by President Trump that deals with this. Is not like her own documents. So, but the fact that the president gave her the documents on the State of the Union, that makes it official state documents. So, yes, she actually broke a statute. I think it's statute number 2007 or something like that. Which it's covered on angelespino.com, my website. By the way, go there, angelespino.com, for the all the information. All the posts are on there, and I have a whole thing on how she broke a law. And it'll be really sad if they don't go after this woman, because she's done so many things to break laws, help concoct this entire impeachment hoax against the president, which, by the way, there's no doubting this whole thing is a joke, a hoax, conspiracy, just run amok. I mean, you want to hear about Russian collusion? Here's your Russian collusion. It wasn't done by Trump, right? He's not the one that colluded with Russians, okay? Colonel Alexander Vindman is Russian. His father's Russian, his mother's Russian, his twin brother's Russian. Ukraine used to be part of Russia, right? He was born in Ukraine. His parents were born in Russia. He's, the liaison to the Ukraine because he was born there, and I guess he's on a lot of these calls for the Ukraine government, and a lot of these foreign phone calls he would be involved in because he was a highly military, appointee. But he was appointed by the Obama administration. Not exactly Donald Trump's best friend, Barack Obama. So when you're telling me that this whole thing started with him, going to his brother, his father, the whistleblower, and Adam Schiff, and then you're telling me that this is grounds for impeachment? I mean, it's bad enough that we have senators who are trying to take Trump's job during the election, sitting in on the impeachment process. So basically, the people that are trying to replace him at his job are going to, we're there to pass judgment. You think any of them voted for him not to be impeached? You think Bernie Sanders didn't vote to impeach him? He's trying to take his job, but he knows he can't do it. I've never, heard of this in my life, where the people that are trying to take your job are also going to be sitting in on your impeachment to try to remove you from office months before you're even up for another election. Remember, guys, the election's coming up in a few months, okay? If you want to remove him, vote against him. If you want him to stay, vote for him. It's really that easy. It's that simple. I know where my vote is going. I'm voting for Trump again. And the left has done absolutely nothing in the last 4 years to really gain my trust. And this is coming from a person who voted Democrat most of his life. I changed and I went independent. I'm still an independent. I'm not Republican. I'm not Democrat. I vote for whoever the best candidate is. And there's nobody within the Democratic Party right now that has my vote. It's that simple. It's not creepy Joe Biden. It's not Yang Gang. It's not Pocahontas. It's not sodomizing Pete. It's none of these cats. I don't want any of these folks involved. And I definitely don't want Bernie Sanders as president. I mean, are you kidding me? That's straight up socialism, communism at its worst, is Bernie Sanders. In fact, he is open about it. And he's been open about it for decades. He doesn't hide the fact that he's a socialist and communist. He doesn't hide that fact. And, the Yang Gang, that's another comedy show in itself. He's Chinese. Comes from a Chinese family. China is communist. You see where I'm going with this? He's also a leftist, which means he's definitely a socialist. Or a communist, right? That's what social liberals kind of are all leaning towards. Now, I find it ironic that AOC came out, of course, and backed Bernie Sanders. But really, I mean, all these people running for for the presidency from the left are all communist, socialists. I mean, this is what, it's coming out of the Democratic Party, and it's scary. I mean, to see them go this extreme completely removes what the Democratic Party was supposedly standing for many years. This is a party that's not supposed to stand for this kind of lunacy, but yet they are. And it's sad. It's something that should be looked more and more into, because a lot of these folks that are being put into position now, they're not just running for office. You have Congress people that are, American, white, and they're putting Muslims that are coming from foreign countries into position of power within their own administrations, their own committees. And again, a lot of these socialists are coming from the Middle East. These are Democrat socialists. A lot of these people are part of the problem. And I'm not just saying this because I have signal, xenophobia, or I'm afraid of Muslims, or I hate women, or anything. No, none of that. It's I'm looking at the demographic of what's going on in Congress, and I'm seeing what's happening, where the amount of women that have turbans on their heads, as Ilhan Omar, that's multiplying. It's becoming more and more common now. And, they send the woman to get the job because, the woman's easier to squeeze in there without being bashed or anything, because guys don't want to talk about women in a negative way, because then they're called sexist, feminist, and man babies. How dare you speak out against a woman? Look what happened with the fraud squad when they're, impeach 45, right? Impeach President Trump. We're going to impeach this motherfucker. Remember all that? And then Trump, says something, which is after months and months and months and months of those 4 women talking bad about him, he says something, one thing, and he has to be completely thrown into the mud for it, for saying something that really we were all thinking about. And he went at them a little bit. He hasn't really gone at them all that hard. I mean, he's been restrained considering how evil they've been and how badly they've mistreated him. I'm surprised he's been as gentle to those 4 lunatics. And, it shows the temperament of the president to be one of caution when it comes to talking back to some of these folks. Now, Nancy Pelosi does not deserve it at all. She's a horrible human being. So, him going after her, have no issues with that. She makes Rosie O'Donnell seem tame, and I didn't think that was at all possible. I thought that was an impossibility, to be honest. Guys, we're going to go on a quick commercial break. We're going to be back in a couple minutes. When we come back, we're going to do another 20 minutes. Got a couple of things that we'll get over. Some more news, and then we're going to have our guest Mitchell on during the 11 o'clock hour. Stick around. We got much more of Inside the Jackal's Head coming up. All right, everybody, welcome back to Inside the Jackal's Head, and we are live right here on psn-radio.com. We have a few minutes, about 20 before the hour is over, and we get to our guest Mitchell, which is standing by. Of course, it's going to be just an amazing hour with him. And I do believe, I think a lot of folks are going to really come out of this enlightened once they hear what's going on with the Falun Gong and the genocide that's going on in China. And not just, again, with the Falun Gong. We're going to talk about the coronavirus and other things that are happening out there, because there's a lot of stuff happening in China, which I think a lot of the West is not really becoming aware of. And Mitchell Nicholas Gerber is a gentleman who's going to enlighten a lot of us to what's going on over there. In fact, we're going to have him again in 20 minutes, and I'm going to open the floor for him to just tell us everything that he can based on his research, uncensored. So whatever he says, it's not going to get clipped or touched in any way, shape, or form when production ends and the podcast goes up. So, I mean, what is going to be said is, 100% of his research, and I hope you guys are listening. Again, want to get to a couple of things that deal with the show directly. Starting next week, we're going to have a new segment here at the last 15, 20 minutes of the first hour. And it's going to be called Kaiser's Corner. And we're going to have a good friend, Kaiser, is going to join us from then on every week. And he's going to have this little corner segment inside the Jackal's Head. Again, it's going to be for 10, maybe 20 minutes, depending on the topics he wants to talk about. Usually with Kaiser, we can go on for hours. I decided to give him his own little segment here on the show because he's another guy who's full of great information. And I can't wait for next week so he can kick off the segment. And to hear him and brother Detox, aka Brandon, go back and forth was a lot of fun. Last time they were both on, so I think we're going to get a kick out of that. I wanted to have a few minutes to kind of say that it's always fun to have a sidekick or somebody to go with the flow and kind of like lean on. But doing this show, I've been doing this for a long time, for a decade at least, and I've had co-hosts I've done it on my own. I've had sidekicks, not psychics, but sidekicks like Brendan, and it's always something that I'd rather have a sidekick, but sometimes, like tonight, I really am glad that I'm kind of like going at it alone, because it's just going to be me and Mitchell, and we're going to get to hear his point of view on what's going on with China and not being interrupted too much. I want to try, like I said, to keep my interruptions at a minimum so we can get as much information on within the hour. And if you guys want to further continue researching what he's going to bring forward to us tonight, by all means, follow his stuff online. He's on YouTube, Facebook, all over the place. So make sure you pay attention to what he tells you to go to make sure you get the most updated information, because this is something that I want not only my listeners to pay attention to, but I want them to keep up to date with. Especially given the climate of the coronavirus, and I want you guys to spread this as much as possible to other folks who might not be aware of what's going on with this. Again, what seems to be a very innocent community of people. Now, there could be something sinister behind innocence. I don't know. I'm not a practitioner of the Falun Gong. I haven't started meditating or joined the cult, as China's calling them. But again, we know about cults here in the United States, and there's been a few of them, to say the least. But with that said, I also wanted to get to a couple other things that I posted on my website on angelespino.com. If you go there right now, you can follow along. Very important. Tonight, also, the Oscars are playing. That's not important. So I'm not going to get into anything that has to do with the Oscars. I don't care who wins. I know Joker's probably going to win Best Picture, Best Actor, and all kind of stuff. But I really don't care. There's more important things right now than Hollywood and all that nonsense. For example, Rudy Giuliani has his own podcast. I don't know if you guys have checked that out. It's called Common Sense. And he laid out the entire Biden corruption with Ukraine. And the video's posted on my website. If you want to go take a look at it, it's a must-watch video. It's a YouTube podcast that he's just putting out there. He's basically laying out the entire case of what happened in Ukraine with the Bidens, and how it's not just something that's happening in Ukraine. China is involved with the Bidens. Of course, Joe China, as he's been called before, there's a history there, and it seems like China is a big player in feeding money to the Bidens, which it's interesting, and the way Rudy lays it all out. It really, really, really is something to take a look at. Must-watch video. So please go to the website and check that out. When you're there, there's also a couple of things which, we missed over the last week or so, because it just happened recently. One person in Hollywood that I did want to kind of give a special send-off to, because he passed away, and at 103, he lived a long time. I probably won't even get to see half of that, but movie star and screen legend Kirk Douglas did pass away this past week on the 6th of February, I think. And he was born in 1916. So he was about 103 years old. One of those guys who you never really thought he would die because he kept getting older and older and older, and it was just one of those things where you're like, whoa, yeah, 100, 101, 102, 103, and I thought he would be alive to 110, 20. The guy was just an immortal. Of course, his son Michael Douglas is a big movie star in his own right, and they're all mourning the loss of their father, Kirk Douglas, who was a screen legend, and our condolences to the Douglas family for the loss. And his movies are great. If you haven't seen Spartacus or any of his films, it's a good time to go back and check out some of the old movies that he made. He was a fantastic actor, well before my generation. But a fantastic actor, and he will be missed. That's the only piece of Hollywood news that I would have passed along today, because I'm really kind of fed up with Hollywood. I mean, other than, the past where, I love, going to the movies still. I love watching films and all that stuff, but I don't like the atmosphere of the actors. It's too toxic. You have all these crazy Democrats now over there. You have Madonna drinking her urine. You have Alyssa Milano showing us why she was never the boss. You have all these crazies that are constantly attacking the president. You even have Luke Skywalker, Mark Hamill get into the act attacking Trump's grandson in a tweet. I mean, it's lunacy to see what's coming out of Hollywood. So, again, I'm not really too keen on talking about that. It's just, I really don't care anymore about Hollywood. And it's sad because we did a whole podcast talking about Star Wars on the Roundtable this past week also. And we're talking about Star Wars. And I'm going to be honest with you, I saw Rise of Skywalker. It was good. I liked it. But I wasn't excited for it, and for me to say that I wasn't excited for a Star Wars movie tells you that even I'm getting kind of like fed up with a Star Wars, not so much, but with Hollywood and the whole climate that's being, toxified by the negativity that's coming out of Hollywood, ironically in California. Just saying, a lot of negativity in California, and it seems to be circling around Hollywood, Weinstein, and all of the stuff that's going on over there. And, I saw I see funny memes all the time. People send me funny memes constantly. There's one that I've passed along, and I saw other people pass it, to friends of mine, and they kind of got back to me somehow, like, I haven't seen it before, And it's the one where Harvey Weinstein is with Oprah and some white girl, and they're like introducing her to Harvey Weinstein, and you have this feeling like, oh my God, she has no idea what she's getting herself into. And here she thought Oprah was about to give her a car or something, right? No, she's presenting you to the guys who want to make you a movie star. Now, if you want to talk about people in cultists, what Harvey Weinstein was doing, it was not cultist, but that was pretty sick, and Hollywood, which I do think is a cult in itself, covered for him for years. Oprah covered for him for years. She knew what was happening. She's no dummy. All these folks over there in Hollywood knew what was going on. None of them are stupid. They play stupid. They might go full retard in the movie, but they all knew what's happening. I mean, the joke for Weinstein was for years that he was a sex addict. That was always his thing. In fact, I do believe he and Weinstein and Epstein, sitting on a tree, Kissing, I don't know. They seem to have been buddies, and I say that kidding around, but remember there's that famous painting of Bill Clinton in a dress, which I think was symbolic to the dress Monica wore. I think the same dress, but it was a painting, not a picture, and it had Bill Clinton in the dress. I mean, it's bad enough he went on the dress and she kept it in a freezer, which is weird into itself, but the fact that he was painted in that dress, in a big-ass painting, sitting in Pedophile Island with Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, all that stuff is a little weird. Just saying, a little strange. I don't know about you guys. But segueing from that's a never-ending story in itself. But sad news, of course, Rush Limbaugh has diagnosed that he has cancer. We briefly, I think, touched upon that. On the State of the Union, though, the president did something phenomenal. And very well deserving, by the way. He presented Rush with an award for his years and years of dedication, a bravery award, a Medal of Honor. One of the highest the president could bestow anybody, and of course, Nancy Pelosi's ripping on papers. But sad again on the cancer diagnosis by Rush Limbaugh, and as somebody who's looked up to talk radio for years, Rush has always been there. Like as a kid in the 90s, I remember watching this TV show and hearing him on the radio, and he's been consistent from then to now on what he says about the left and about the Clintons, and he's been right consistently, especially about the Clintons. I mean, for decades, when Bill ran for office, and during the Obama years when Hillary was part of the administration, he was very open and vocal about the corruption and the evil of these folks were behind the scenes, and he was accurate. I mean, we're seeing it unfold now, and he deserves that medal. And I really pray that he can overcome this. I, of course, in 2016 lost my mom to lung cancer, and I know the process is not fun. It's not a fun way to go. Not that dying could ever be fun, but it really is an ugly way for family members to see you go through that, and to experience what he's going to experience if they don't catch it in time is really, really bad and sad. And I feel really bad for him, and hopefully they caught it in time. Hopefully that he can have surgery. Look, even if you have to lose a lung to save your life, do it. Do whatever you have to do, Rush. Make sure you get back into, good health. Forget radio, forget TV, forget politics. Take care of yourself right now. And, my prayers are to him. And, anybody listening to this podcast, I'm agnostic. I don't believe in religion. And I'm praying for Rush, and I hope that everybody out there can pray, because I do believe in the power of awareness, the power of, the secret, basically, the laws of attraction. I do believe in that. And I do believe that if we all get together and kind of meditate or we pray for this man's health to get better, I think we can make that happen. And, again, if you listen to this podcast, take the time, whenever you say your prayers to whoever your God is, and add Rush in there, because he's been a pioneer, not just on radio, but in politics in general. And again, for the last several decades, that man has been right. And with that said, guys, we're going to be back in a few minutes with our main guest in the second hour. And it's none other than Mitchell Nicholas Gerber, who's going to talk to us. And he's waiting on Skype, so we're going to go on a quick commercial break. Again, we're going to be back with him on the line. And one more thing about Rush Limbaugh. Get well, my friend. I look forward to one day being able to interview that man, because he's a hero to a lot of us doing talk radio. So, guys, we'll be back in a few minutes. Stick around. It's going to be a tremendous second hour. All right, everybody, welcome back to Inside the Jackal's Head, right here live again on psn-radio.com. That's Intellectual Love by the one and only Space Boy. We love Space Boy here on the show, and if you guys are listening in, we're not talking about space tonight. This entire hour is going to be dedicated to right here, planet Earth, and some of the worst things that are happening on another part of the planet, which have come to my attention, like I said in the first hour, stuff that I wasn't fully aware of at all. And it's crazy the times we're living in. The guest right now who's going to be joining me in a couple of seconds here is somebody who is going to become probably a long life friend, because he's doing something that is amazing. And, I like to always say that when I find somebody who's doing work that is beneficial to not just one group of people, but to the world, to enlighten the world, those are the folks you want to, help and support. Now, Mitchell, like I said, Mitchell Nicholas Gerber, and I'm going to address him by full name out of full respect. Mitchell Nicholas Gerber has been working on for a long time on researching the Falun Gong and the atrocities that's been going on in China. So much so that the information that I was even looking at are years old, and they're still relevant to what's going on today, with the coronavirus. And I want to welcome him to the show for the next hour. Mitchell, I don't want to waste any time. I kind of briefed over your bio earlier on in the first hour, but I want really to open the window for you to go here and say not only how long you've been working on this research, but how many people are suspected to have been missing for as long as it's been going on, because this is not something that's recent, this genocide with these people and this what seems to be a peaceful community. Now, like I addressed in the first hour, we have our fair share of, history with cults here in America, in the western part of the world. But when I researched the Falun Gong, this is not what seems to me like a dangerous group of people. If anything, these are the type of folks that you can go have some tea with and maybe meditate with, and nothing bad's going to happen. They seem like a very peaceful group of people. Welcome to the show, and it really enlightened us more on what's happening in China with these folks over decades now.
Well, I just am very grateful, Angel, for being on your show. It's a blessing and it's a godsend, and it's an absolute pleasure and honor. I have been following this case for the last 20 years of my life. When you are touched by something very powerful, very sincere, and very truthful, you have no option but to investigate deeply into the source, into the matter, into the heart of something that touches you very deeply, Yep. And when I was studying international business at the University of Georgia many, many, many years ago, I was 21, now I'm 40. I was into all kinds of martial arts and yoga and Tai Chi, and I was a gung-ho fitness warrior, and loved the sports. And however, I was very anxious, and I was depressed, and my body wasn't in good shape, and I was looking for something that was quite simple to do, very profound in health, but nothing dogmatic, nothing cultish, nothing extreme, nothing religious. I came from a Judeo-Christian background, but I wanted something that was just very, very easy and very simple and very organic, if you could say, comfortable, right? And as a big alpha warrior, I'm like, man, I don't want any of this wooey spiritual nonsense. I just want something that can make me feel good, you know what I mean? But, stick to my martial arts, masculine energy. And anyway, cut a long story short.
By the way, we share that attribute because I took martial arts for years. In fact, the only reason I stopped practicing martial arts was because I had an eye issue, and I kind of freaked out. I almost lost an eye in one of the matches. But for a long time, I was deeply into martial arts. It started in the 80s, 90s, until I had to leave. But that's something we both share, and this is something that connected me to this whole thing, because I love the martial arts. I love that traditional, way of life that these folks practiced, hundreds of years ago until, modern times. So when I heard that, you were kind of like really into that as well, I was like, wow, me and Mitchell have a lot in common, and
Absolutely.
It's incredible that we have that connection.
Indeed. It takes one to know one,
Yeah.
and birds of a feather stick together. So, yes, on May 4th, 2001, I was at the University of Georgia, and there was a cultured fair with all different kinds of practices and Native American modalities and, martial arts. And lo and behold, a good friend of mine points out this booth to me, and I turn around and I see these young Chinese children and teenagers and young adults, and then older people practicing along with this beautiful ancient Chinese music and this teacher, all in Chinese, practicing these exercises. So it intrigued me, and it caught my attention. And I went up and I was like, "Wow, I feel this energy. It's pretty cool. What is all this about?" So one of the gentlemen, who couldn't speak a word of English, named Sam, comes up to me and gives me a flyer, and I look at the flyer and I'm like, Falun Gong, also known as Falun Dafa. And I was like, what is this? And I was taken into the park, just across the road, into the campus, and they started to teach me the exercises. And the first exercise unblocks all those energy channels that are congested by all the stress and all the anxiousness. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, my goodness, man, wow, holy cow. After practicing the first exercise, which is stretching the whole body immediately and then relaxing, your body feels so unblocked and so relieved by all the stress, and very warm and refreshed, opened up. And I was like, man, I got to get some more of this. And the second exercise is more of an endurance exercise. The third one, you collect the energy from the universe and then purify the body. The fourth one, you trace the body, very similar to like a Reiki type of exercise. And the fifth exercise of this Falun Gong exercise is a meditation practice, a sitting meditation to attain a clear and clear mind. And I just was hooked from the get-go. And the simple philosophy is truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance. And I thought, well, is there any catches? Is there any dogmatic principles that I had to abide by? Is there any money involved? Nothing. Just you come as you come, you go as you go, you practice these exercises, and you can live a better life of being more truthful, compassionate, and tolerant, whether you were in a loving relationship, whether you're doing $1 million business deals, whether you're studying at school. You can be anyone you want. You can be Muslim, Christian, Jewish, atheist, man, woman, doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with that. So you can practice Falun Gong in the comfort of your home, in your corporate office, wherever you are, and you can maintain incredible benefits and health benefits. And
which is completely opposite to what a cult is, by the way, not to cut you off, but a cult is, a religious institution where they want you to believe in this, one entity, whatever that entity is, whether it's God, Jesus, the bread devil, whatever their idea of the deity is, they want you to indoctrinate you to that. This is completely opposite from that. By all, means, when I look at, just the definition of what they practice, none of it is cult-like behavior.
Correct. Unlike monastic paths of cultivation or religious practices, Falun Gong is practiced in society with students marrying, raising children, pursuing a wide variety of careers. You can be a multi-million-dollar CEO. You can be a fashion designer. You can be an entertainer. As such, while Falun Gong aspires to inner transformation of the self, it nevertheless typically translates outward into a positive change of the world. So, it's practiced in all different countries in the world, about 120 different countries. It's received awards and proclamations, even conferred by the Chinese government before it was completely outlawed by the Chinese regime. And now these people are being killed for their organs in death camps and state-mandated hospitals. The thing is that the practice's founder, Mr. Li Hongxi, he's a 5-time Nobel Peace Prize nominee and nominated by the European Parliament for the Freedom of Thought Award and Freedom House's International Religious Freedom Award. But only the Chinese government and the communist regime, basically, who controls the government, and slandered Falun Gong and demonized it as a cult, just like the Nazis did with the Jews, in order to create a final solution campaign based on the medical research they were doing from the results of practicing the Falun Gong exercises and living more of a truthful and compassionate lifestyle. The research showed the tremendous benefits from the exercises and the organs becoming incredibly healthy. So the Chinese communist regime demonized Falun Gong as some kind of sinister cult in order to turn public opinion and therefore get the go-ahead to send hundreds and thousands of Falun Gong to re-education camps, basically. But not re-education camps. They were actual state-mandated hospitals to cut their organs out of their bodies while alive and then sell the organs as the healthiest organs in the world illegally without consent. And I would love to see if you can play the first clip, Angel, so people can get a little bit of a vivid depiction of what's actually going on.
Definitely. Let's go ahead and roll that. And here we go.
It's a traditional practice of self-cultivation, a practice of slow-moving exercises, meditation, and studying of the principles of truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance, and trying to adopt those into your life.
While morning exercises had always been popular in China, Falun Gong brought more than just health benefits.
For thousands of years, the Chinese people have believed in Buddhas and Taos and becoming an immortal. Falun Gong really dared to talk about these things, and immediately people took it to heart. Oh, the true ancient good things of China have come back.
However, after 50 years of political campaigns to destroy traditional beliefs, any revival of spirituality was seen as a threat to communist rule.
Since I was 11, I experienced all of the Chinese Communist Party's campaigns. Group after group of good people were targeted. There was no faith, no truth. Falun Gong stood in stark contrast with communist ideology, so it would be very hard for it to be tolerated by the CCP.
With more practitioners than members in the Communist Party, the party chief, Jiang Zemin, saw it as a threat to his power and overruled the government support of Falun Gong.
Jiang Zemin issued an order, set up special office called 610 Office, in charge of nationwide campaign of persecution.
Known as China's Gestapo, the 610 agency was above the law and could use any and all means necessary to achieve its sole mission, to eliminate Falun Gong. The nationwide campaign began July 1999.
People were disappearing. I couldn't find my friends. One day there were 30 of us in the park, and the next day they're gone, and in the middle of the park, tacked on the tree, was a government declaration that this has been outlawed.
First time I heard about the persecution, I didn't believe it at the first. And when I heard my mom was in the labor camp, I was very worried. And later on, my sister was put in the labor camp. My younger brother was put into jail. Basically, my family is just torn apart. When this family is torn apart, actually, I feel inside torn apart.
Outside the labor camps, propaganda campaigns against Falun Gong were running 24/7 on all media.
Like, you turn on the TV, and literally the only way to describe it is propaganda marathons. You'd have mass book burnings organized by the party, steamrollers going over Falun Gong cassette tapes and CDs.
Essentially, it's a process of demonizing and dehumanizing, incessant propaganda.
In January 2001, Chinese Central Television broadcast this news that people were setting themselves on fire in Tiananmen Square, and they claimed that these were Falun Gong practitioners.
This propaganda story used a mother and her 12-year-old daughter. It was a major turning point in the CCP's campaign.
They turned Tiananmen Square into a movie set, and they used movie techniques to try to create something, but it was staged.
Because state-run media broadcast it constantly for a year, people around China, their views on Falun Gong started to change.
Initially, the Communist Party was very public about its campaign against Falun Gong. But what happened after about, I would say starting from 2002, is that you started to see really almost more of a media blackout. Falun Gong simply became a taboo topic.
With millions of practitioners in detention, one of the worst crimes in history began taking place in hospitals throughout the country as organ transplants suddenly began to skyrocket.
We've been asked to investigate allegations that there has been harvesting of organs of Falun Gong in China. Our bottom line conclusion, after considering everything as best we could, was that the allegations are true.
I began conducting comprehensive interviews with medical professionals, Chinese law enforcement personnel, and over 50 refugees from the Laogai system. But I estimate that 65,000 Falun Gong were murdered for their organs from 2000 to 2008.
Essentially what organ harvesting means is they're taking Falun Gong practitioners literally like cattle, holding in prison camps, testing their blood and other vital organs, and when someone comes into the country that needs a heart, a liver, a kidney, they find a match, they take the Falun Gong practitioner, extract their organs, of course killing them in the process.
Wow, and they're doing this, folks, to living people. I mean, they're just taking them off the streets, taking them into these camps, and doing these terrible Nazi-like experiments, and they just taking the organs. I mean, think about this. Now, Mitchell, correct me if I'm wrong. They're selling the organs not just to Chinese. I mean, these organs are going on a worldwide trafficking scheme, I assume. I mean, this is not something just for the Chinese people. So if you're an American who needs a liver, and it's coming out of China, and you're going to China to get it, this is probably where you're getting the liver from.
Absolutely, absolutely. When the persecution of Falun Gong started, the labor camp system, the prison system, the detention systems, the re-education camps skyrocketed. I mean, they were building hospitals left, right, and center, adding massive amounts of wards, hospital wards, to cater to this multi-billion-dollar profiteering organ harvesting business. Now, David Kilgour and David Mattis, the second clip I would like to share with you, just to follow on the first clip, is David Mattis and David Kilgour, ladies and gentlemen, where these two gentlemen are from Canada. David Kilgour, as you'll hear, is the former Secretary of State of the Asian Affairs of the Canadian Parliament, and David Mattis, an international human rights lawyer. They confirmed the allegations of forced organ harvesting in 2006 with 18 pieces of evidence. What you're about to hear is David Kilgour in 2013 confirming there were 52 pieces of evidence on the BBC where Falun Gong practitioners were just sent by into state-mandated hospitals and their organs cut open while alive, and the organs extracted, and then all the bodies burned in the ovens of the crematories. We've had Chinese surgeons come out. We've had a Chinese surgeon, as you'll hear from David Kilgour, that did open surgery on remove the corneas of over 2,000 Falun Gong practitioners. We've also had prison guards that watched the Chinese military send hundreds and thousands of Falun Gong in sealed cattle cars to state-mandated hospitals all over the country of China. So yes, this is serious. And if you could be so kind, I think your audience will find the evidence very compelling with the second clip. This was in 2006 and 2013.
Let's go ahead and roll that clip.
Upsetting issue. Allegations that have repeatedly been aired that China plays a part in harvesting organs, mainly of executed prisoners. The numbers run to thousands every year. Organs then get sold on for transplants. It's always been vehemently denied by the Chinese government. But here in Britain, representatives of a campaign called Forced Organ Harvesting have been looking at the issue, and they've got as far as presenting their latest findings to the British Parliament. Two representatives join us here in the studio. Welcome to David Kilgour, former member of the Canadian Parliament, and Ethan Gutmann, author of several books on China, who've both been involved in the investigations, are here to tell us a little bit more. David Kilgour, if I could start with you, what are the latest findings of your investigation? What are you closing in on?
That about 65,000 Falun Gong practitioners have been killed and their organs trafficked. There are other people too, convicted prisoners are killed, of course, but the thing that we're focusing on is the Falun Gong community. My colleague Ethan Gutmann has done a lot of work on the Uyghur community. He'll probably want to say something about that. But yeah, there's no doubt. We have 52 kinds of evidence that this is happening. To give you the easiest example, the wife of a surgeon told us that her husband had removed the corneas from 2,000 Falun Gong practitioners in a 2-year period. So, I mean, there's absolutely no doubt in anybody's mind. We've got 2 books on it. We've got all kinds of...
And these, just to clarify, these come after judicial executions?
No, there's no judicial involvement in virtually all of the Falun Gong. That's the thing that nobody understands.
Okay, right. So we better clarify this, because we often cover the fact that China, of course, has one of the highest rates of execution, judicial execution. It's their choice. That's what they do. And they're always there in the top 3, along with Saudi Arabia and Iran. But this is something different.
Exactly. It's because a police signature is all you need to get sent to a forced labor camp. And then basically what happens is somebody from, it could be London, it could be Canada, goes over there for a liver. And there's a computer bank, and it says there's a match for you out in camp number 50, and somebody's dragged out of camp number 50 into an operating room. Their liver's taken out of them. It's flown to Shanghai, where you're probably waiting for your liver, and you come back to London with a new liver, and somebody has been killed like a lobster in a grotesque restaurant.
Hang on a minute. So you're not even saying, because, I mean, it's one issue, the judicial executions and the use of the cadaver, which I suppose in a certain legal sense is the property of the state once the state has killed the individual. But you're saying these are people being killed to order?
Precisely. And it's so, as you say, your horror shows how distressing it is. But yet it never gets mentioned, that these are people who've been maybe giving out pamphlets asking them to stop killing Falun Gong, and they're guilty of nothing.
The allegation and our findings are shocking. I mean, to us, this is a form of evil we have yet to see on this planet. This is a new form of evil. I'm David Matus, and with me is David Kilgour. We've been asked to investigate allegations that there has been harvesting of organs of Falun Gong in China. That the donors, the Falun Gong donors, are unwilling, then they have been executed in the process, either for the purpose of the transplants or after the transplants, and that their bodies are cremated. That was the allegation we were asked to investigate. David Kilgour is a former member of Parliament and former cabinet minister for Asia-Pacific, and I'm a Winnipeg lawyer doing immigration, refugee, and international human rights law in Winnipeg. We were asked to investigate this allegation by the coalition against, it's a coalition investigating allegations of persecution, coalition to investigate the persecution of Falun Gong in China, which is based in Washington, D.C. We were asked to do this a couple months ago, and we have now done our investigation, and we're producing this report. We were not paid. We were doing this as volunteers, and we're not associated officially with anyone. We're just acting independently from everyone and doing this investigation. We pursued every investigative trail we could find. In the report, you will see that there are 18 different avenues of proof and disproof we considered and evaluated. Our bottom line conclusion, after considering everything as best we could, was that the allegations are true. We believe them to be true, that this harvesting is indeed happening. That conclusion comes not from any one of these different 18 categories of evidence that we looked at, but by assessing everything all together. Altogether, they paint a whole picture. All the evidence we looked at either corroborated the allegations, or in some cases where we were looking at possible disproof, did not disprove the allegations. We do know for a fact that the Falun Gong are depersonalized, dehumanized, and marginalized, repressed, persecuted, both in word and in deed, in the most vile ways possible. For this sort of allegation to be true in Canada would involve a very large step from where we are, but in China, it's not that big a step from where China has been.
Now, here's a question for you, Mitchell. How are the Chinese government, how do they know exactly who is practicing Falun Gong? Because, as we said earlier, anybody could be a practicer of this this spiritual movement. It's not like a religious cult where they all get together in this little city or this little town that they created for this little group of people in our cult movement. Like anybody in the world can practice it. This is more like just a practice in a way of life, and again, it's something that it doesn't seem in any way like a cult. So how are they finding these people and acknowledging that, yeah, these people are practitioners of Falun Gong? I mean, how do they know?
Well, that's a great question. Well, when Falun Gong became the life force of China, you had between 70 and 100 million people databased by the Chinese regime in order to figure out exactly who were Falun Gong or who weren't. That's why you have 1 million Uyghur Muslims. I'm sure your audience have seen the reports coming out on the mainstream media about the Uyghur Muslims, how up to about 2 million are detained in concentration camps. Because in China, it's a surveillance state. So you are owned, operated, and controlled. So everyone is documented. There's no private rights, there's no private property, there's no privacy. Unlike in America or in the normal West, where you still have rights, whatever's left of them, right? But right. I can assure you, where I'm living in communist Vietnam, and as in China, even worse in China, there's a social credit score, there's facial recognition. They know everything about you. So when Falun Gong became the life force of China, 100 million people were practicing. That's 1 out of every 12 national Chinese citizens. And when the persecution first began, you had hundreds and thousands, if not millions, protesting the government to say, look, why are you persecuting us? Why are you banning us? Why are you freezing our bank accounts? So they will just hauled off. Hundreds and thousands were hauled off to labor camps, up to 1 million Falun Gong practitioners in labor camps. And so and then what was even worse, they were forcefully blood tested. I was on a podcast this morning with Dr. Charles Lee, which I hope you can get on your podcast one of these days, Angel. He was put in a labor camp for 3 years after protesting the Chinese regime. He came back to China to visit his mother, and immediately after he got off the plane, they knew immediately who he was, and they got him into custody. China is a surveillance state, just like communist Vietnam. That you are owned, controlled, and databased by the state. So basically, you are property of the state. So that's how they knew how many Falun Gong practitioners were there. And if I may say, is to understand how organ harvesting could happen in China, it is crucial to understand that there is no limit to how far the Chinese Communist Party will go to wipe out something or someone. So when the persecution started in July 1999, Angel, the Chinese regime called Falun Gong the biggest threat to national security since Tiananmen Square 10 years ago. And the leader of the Chinese Communist Party at that time, Jiang Zemin, when the persecution began, he consolidated his power and out of hatefulness and jealousy launched the entire military, the secret police, the hospitals, and 1/4 of China's gross domestic profit, at least, to eradicate Falun Gong within 3 months. He couldn't do it. And this has been persevering for the last 20 years, this persecution. And when you have an entire propaganda machine, the largest propaganda machine in history, the largest Chinese military, the second largest economy in the world, the largest population in China, scapegoating this innocent spiritual practice, you have a monstrosity of a red dragon against you. And I take my hat off to the human rights lawyers. I take my hat off to the Falun Gong practitioners. I take my hat off to you and your audience for listening, to taking time out of your busy schedule and running the risk, because I can assure you, every time I've gone on these type of podcasts, you are cyber securely hacked. I mean, you are attacked by the Chinese surveillance system because they do not want the truth out. Just like the coronavirus, they do not want the truth out, what's going on in China to this day. Mm-hmm. So I'm grateful that I can come out to share with you and talk to you about this truth.
Yeah, no, in fact, I bless you for being on here, and thank you for, bringing this to my attention further, because, like I said, I always suspected that China would do something really weird when it comes to, like, a breakout or something like that. It was maybe not legit, like a real disease. It just spreads out, out of nowhere. And the coronavirus, to me, it's something that from the moment that I saw it on the news, I was like, that feels staged somehow. Like, it feels like it's there to cover for something else. And then when I saw, where you were working on, I saw this Falun Gong and this entire, genocide going on with these people. I'm like, this is the exact reason why we're having the coronavirus. It all leads up to this, and fudging the numbers of the victims that China has taken over the years. And they could easily do that with something like the coronavirus, because who knows how many victims this is going to claim. And, it's an amazing escape for them, if you think about it.
Absolutely. If you don't mind playing clip 3, Edward Begot said it's great. He's 3-time vice president of the European Parliament, and I think what he says is quite compelling to your audience as well.
I wrote a report on EU-China relations in 1996-7 for the Foreign Affairs Committee, and returned to Beijing in 2006, where I met ex-prisoners of conscience, Falun Gong practitioners, as well as made contact with a number of other dissidents and reformers. All the Chinese with whom I had contact were then imprisoned, and in some cases, like Gao Zhisheng, tortured. Gao Zhisheng is a Christian human rights lawyer, very, very well known in China, who investigated the persecution of Falun Gong and wrote reports about it. And one of the people I met, Cao Dong, who had been in prison, told me the story about how his best friend had disappeared one evening from the cell in their prison, and the next time he saw him, it was his body in the prison hospital with holes where body parts had been extracted. The belief that I have, and I share with David Kilgour, that organ harvesting is widespread in China, and it is restricted almost exclusively to Falun Gong practitioners. The only prisoners in China who are routinely blood tested and blood pressure tested are Falun Gong practitioners. The organ transplant industry is in the hands of the military. The People's Liberation Army is responsible for the hospitals, the transportation of body parts, and the sale of them. It is therefore a governmental activity and constitutes genocide under Article 2 of the Genocide Convention. It is as serious as that. And my final word is, with respect to you, Peter, the Falun Gong are to the Chinese regime of today what the Jews were to the Nazis during the war. And we should all take note of this and look at China with new eyes. The European Parliament comes from a very diverse background, and as Peter has already said, even within this quite straightforward resolution there are still problems, because the absolute deluge of propaganda from the regime in Beijing vilifying Falun Gong as some sort of extremist cult. Now, I've met, as I said, hundreds of members of Falun Gong. It is not a sect, it is not a cult, there is no money involved, there is no brainwashing. All the normal characteristics of a cult simply don't exist. These are people who practice their spiritual exercises on their own, and yet, as I said, because between 70 and 100 million people in 1999 were practicing Falun Gong, this was seen by Jiang Zemin, then the leader of the Communist Party, as a threat to his own position. It wasn't, of course, but he saw the opportunity of creating an enemy within. Just as during the war, the Nazis singled out the Jews as a special characteristic and did what they did to the Jews. The same is happening today to Falun Gong in China. That is why it is genocide. That's why I say it's so serious. As to whether we can convey this to all the members of the European Parliament, it's quite difficult. It is quite difficult, but we're trying, and that's what this press conference is about. There'll be other activities today and beyond. I will maintain my campaign, especially until the people I had contact with are released from prison. On the question of Manfred Novak and his reports and his attempts to try and get to the truth about this situation in China, he's told me that he believes that more than 2/3 of the prisoners in China in re-education through labor or forced labor camps are Falun Gong practitioners. That is a huge number of people. Now, at the end of the Kilgour report, you will see a list of more than 3,000 Falun Gong practitioners who have died under torture. To the regime, those are wasted people, but nevertheless, they have died under torture in the prison camps. I've met hundreds of Falun Gong who've been through this terrible process of escalating torture. I believe that we should, in Europe, now set up something like happened in West Germany during the Cold War at Salzgitter, where an impunity index was maintained of confidential denunciations from East Germany under communist rule against torture and maltreatment. And after reunification, a number of prosecutions followed of those people. And what we need in the world today is an impunity index maintained at an international level, in my view, by the EU in conjunction with the International Criminal Court, so that people in China or other countries where there's repression may make confidential denunciations, and having talked to ex-prisoners, they tell me that the one thing that gave them some hope was that one day the torturers would be brought to account. Now, in the report of David Kilgour, David Matas, those 3,000 Falun Gong practitioners who've died, in those cases, it has been established where they were arrested, where they were imprisoned, who did the torture. That is listed, and that's a fundamental point. And we should never, ever give up on the idea that one day justice will be done. Thank you.
Now, it's 2020. Justice is, it's funny that we're talking about this now, because justice right now is coming for a lot of people that are doing a lot of evil in the world, Mitchell. And it's amazing how this is snowballing over the last 20 years with your research and looking into it. But who knows if maybe this is the perfect time for this to come out and really blow up. I mean, I saw you on InfoWars and whatnot, and that's a great platform for this kind of news. But why isn't the more mainstream news picking up on this, considering that everybody's coming out with allegations and hearsay information on this guy and that guy, and everybody's stuck on what's going on in Hollywood? This is like some real event. This is not like some guy touched me 20 years ago. This is happening at a record number to innocent people. What do you think that is happening with the mainstream media, not just in China, obviously because it's a communist country, but worldwide, that are not really covering this like it should be?
Well, there's a saying, extinction of life before loss of profit, right? So the Chinese Communist Party, Angel, uses economic interests to pressure Western countries. So the Chinese Communist Party behaves like the mafia by playing the economic card in foreign diplomacy, whether it's for foreign businesses, whether it's just for the tech giants. Google is now in bed with the communist regime. Hollywood is in bed. They won't dare make any movies without the communist regime's approval. And you will see a lot of the movies nowadays that are coming out about Midway. I couldn't believe when I saw Midway. Midway has been funded by the communist regime's Hollywood movie production sets. I mean, when you always see China in the beginning, you know it's from communist China. So whether China's aircraft manufacturing contract is given to France or the United States depends on which country keeps quiet on the Chinese Communist Party human rights. So many Western businessmen and politicians and mainstream media outlets, especially on the left, like MSNBC and CNN, are driven and controlled by economic profits from China. So some information technology companies like Google from North America have supplied specialized products. Cisco Systems was caught doing this too, to the Chinese Communist Party for blocking the internet. So in order to gain entry into the Chinese market, like Skype as well, some internet websites have agreed to censor themselves and filter out information disliked by the Chinese Communist Party. And I'll give you another statistic, because when you're dealing with this, you've got to be very careful and you cannot exaggerate. Otherwise, your case is shot to hell, right? So I'll give you a fascinating fact. Because facts don't care about your feelings. That's the whole thing. It's all about facts, and logic, evidence, and substantial statistics that garner support of truth. And that truth, and that window of truth is extremely. It's like a whisper. It's very delicate. If you break it in just a delicateness, it would disappear. So anyway, according to data from China's Ministry of Commerce, by the end of April 2004, China has seen or saw a total of United States dollars of $990 billion of foreign investment in various contracts. So that's a huge blood transfusion to the Chinese Communist Party's economy from foreign capital. So within the process of investment and foreign capital, the deciding factor of whether you will be transparent about human rights or expose the human rights or come to the aid of the Falun Gong or not has a big factor involved. I remember when I was at the university, at Georgia State University, one of the top 10 business schools in the nation at that time, in 2001. And I was asking professors, because I was creating a Falun Gong human rights group. I said, I needed someone to sponsor it. You needed a professor. So I went to a couple of professors in the political department, and they would not budge. They would not come on board. I said, why? You know this is going on. You see the evidence I'm bringing to the table. Why not be part of it? And they took me into secret and they said, listen, Mitch, I can't be a part of this because I'm pressured by the Chinese communist regime. And if I go along with this, I will be threatened. Our economic ties will be threatened. Our political interests will be threatened. And I saw this once. Eventually, I got someone that got me to sponsored me. But when I walked down the street and saw these professors, they wouldn't look at me. They felt kind of ashamed, and with all right they should. When I sat down with the Federal Bureau of Investigation in early of 2005, because I received death threats, my car was broken into, Chinese spies came after my friends and beat up my friends, and anyway, I've been through it all, man. I mean, I'm in communist Vietnam right now. I could get at any time communist officials busting down my doors and hauling me off to a detention center, because communist Vietnam is very much in the pockets of the Chinese communist regime. That's who runs Vietnam, basically. Our offices have had to be shut down. We've had to go into secret hiding. I've come back to Vietnam with very little money. I'm a lone warrior. I do this independent. And, what keeps me going is the fact of to fail to support the good and to fail to expose evil is unacceptable. And one day on my deathbed, before I leave this earth, I have to, as a man, know that I've done something worthwhile, that I stood up against an evil, tyrannical red dragon that had all the money in the world and all the superpower in the world, but didn't have the heart and didn't have the morality, and were killing people left, right, and center, as they have done with this bioweapon coronavirus that they've unleashed on their own people, that's been killing now up to 50,000 deaths and 1.5 million people infected. This is the latest figures, the real figures that are coming out. 50,000 dead, up to 1.5 million infected. Now it's gone into Beijing. They're locking down Beijing. They've locked down Hubei province. They've locked down Wuhan. They've locked down Shanghai. 100 million people are now in quarantine. People are being killed on the streets.
Wow.
But this is nothing normal. This is nothing new from the communist regime. The thing is that they did this during the Great Famine of when Mao Zedong came into power. Between 40 and 50 million people wiped out, starved to death. The communist regime and its military under Mao Zedong blocked off all the villages and wouldn't allow the farmers to go out, so people starved to death. There was cannibalism that was involved in China under that era, and now it's just the same thing, where the Chinese military is blocking up everything, concealing everybody, quarantining, and dropped this bioweapon into China in order to turn public opinion against. Or to deceive the people, to show, from the complete economic collapse. But they've shot themselves in both feet, and so it's very serious. It's very problematic.
What's crazy here in the States? You're out in Vietnam, which, by the way, I don't know how you're making it out there. It's amazing. You're out in Vietnam, and you're a brave soul.
Angel, forgive me for cutting you off. I'm surprised I'm even alive. I'm surprised they haven't killed me.
That's shocking. Yeah, it's shocking itself. But you're, let me tell you, you're one of the bravest human beings I've ever met, to be honest with you. And here in the West, let me tell you, it's funny for me to see what's going on here compared to what's going on in China and other parts of the world, because here we're trying to impeach a guy over a bullshit phone call, and we're trying to take away his job. We have people criticizing him for stopping flights coming in and out of China when there's a virus that's spreading all through China, and you have people on the left saying, well, he's a racist for doing that. Really?
It's ridiculous. People are insane.
It's insane.
Well, yes, and I don't know how much time we have left, but the propaganda and the poison of cultural Marxism that is seeped into the liberal universities, the tech giants, the government under Hillary Clinton, Obama, and those people who are absolute criminals, Joe Biden, absolute criminals. If it wasn't for Trump coming in, I don't know if a lot of your audience are Trump supporters, but if it wasn't for Trump stopping this communist terror from taking over America, because this is exactly what the Rockefellers and the globalists and Soros wants. They want to destroy America, destroy the fundamental constitutional values of the United States, take away the guns, and render the American population helpless. This bioweapon, which was accidentally released from the biolab in China, was actually destined for America to invade America in order to render America, kill millions and millions of people, and then invade America from the Mexico border, and use North Korea and Russia to finish the job, and then take over America and depopulate the rest of the world. 600 million people based on the Georgia Guidestones. Now that's that is confirmed, and that is true from communist sources, which I haven't. We can get into that on a large scale. We were talking about this morning, but talking about the Falun Gong, the organ harvesting, the bioweapon. This is a tactic. These are confirmed tactics and reports that have been confirmed by individuals. For example, Francis Boyle, who drafted the Biological Weapons Act in 1989, he confirmed that this is an offensive biological warfare weapon, and that the World Health Organization already knows about it and is in on it. And I can say to you that the investigators of the Falun Gong organ harvesting, when I was sitting with them in Westminster Abbey in London, exposing this at a child trafficking court, and don't even get me started on the human trafficking and the child trafficking and the pedophilia with Jeffrey Epstein that came out. I mean, that whole story. And he was murdered as a CIA operative to keep quiet because of Hillary Clinton's involvement and Bill Clinton's involvement, and God knows how many Prince Andrew of the royal family, just to name a few.
There's a whole list of celebrities, actors, people in politics. I mean, you can name a bunch of these names, and you'll be like, what? That person's on the list. That person's on the list. I mean, it's crazy, Mitchell.
Absolutely. So when I was sitting and talking about this, the confirmed reports in London, we also came to confirm that the Minister of Health to the Chinese Communist Party, Wang Jiefu, who is a liver transplant surgeon who oversaw the persecution and the forced organ harvesting of Falun Gong, and actually conducted forced organ harvesting, live harvesting of Falun Gong practitioners, killing them for their organs. He was boosted onto and placed into the World Health Organization, onto the board of the World Health Organization. And when the investigators came to talk to the World Health Organization, which is the main arm of the United Nations, to share with them, look, this is the 52 pieces of evidence, this is going on, they refuted it, they denied it. And what's sick to me is that these are the people, the United Nations, the World Health Organization, the Vatican, the governing bodies, these are the people who were put in place to save humanity and protect humanity from this kind of evil, but are the very ones that are colluding in this evil. You know what I mean? So that's the scary thing about it. This is who's running the world. This is who's running our medical associations, are implementing policies, ladies and gentlemen, who are creating decisive tactics to destroy the world. And these are the people who we have entrusted with our humanity, with our lives. And these are the very people like Bill and Melinda Gates who patented the bioweapon and was conducting a simulation to see how many millions of people were dying. Well, they conducted that. They concluded that only 65 million people will be killed. This was months before the bioweapon was released in December. So now you have a massive criminal activity conducted by the very people who swore to protect our very existence, are trying now, are deliberately destroying our existence.
Yes. Yeah.
So have fun with that. Wrap your head around that nonsense. That confirmed allegation, which is true. That truth,
No, it doesn't shock me either. And this all probably has a lot to do with, decreasing the world's population. I mean, there's a lot of things that are behind this. Why a lot of these governments would do this and would, take part and allow this to happen. And I think this also points out why Trump is so hated, because he really is against a lot of this stuff. And he's been saying it from the beginning of his campaign, when he was talking about children that go missing and all these things that are happening behind the scenes and draining the swamp. What do you think all that's about?
Trump is the wrench in the globalist plan. He was the wrench. He was a godsend to save the last of the republic, because they were going to destroy America. They were going to take the guns away. So it was our last hope. I mean, this is the great hope that we had. This is a godsend. Trump is a godsend. Say what you like of things, he can do better, but he's only one man. And I mean, because of the checks and balances, he's not a dictator. He's not a supreme leader, as you see in a lot of these Middle Eastern countries, or dictator Xi, who's now been missing for many days. He's actually underground now. I mean, it's out of control, this virus and the forced organ harvesting. So, yeah, Angel, I don't want to take too much more of your time. I would love to share some of your some of the websites that people can go and sign a petition. I know it really doesn't do much, but the pen is always mightier than the sword, especially when it comes to like a will or become power of attorney. If you can sign a petition to support and voice your support for the Falun Gong, and even practice the exercises yourself, you'll see tremendous benefits from health, from psychological, from physiological. You'll be able to sleep better by practicing these exercises. So if I have time to do that would be great, Angel.
Definitely. I know there's one more clip that we haven't gotten to yet from Professor Wendy Rogers. We could still play that. And give the websites now, and before we wrap up after that clip, we'll go ahead and give them out again. But I definitely want to give you a platform to give out the links multiple times. And anybody who's listening to the podcast, you get them now, you get them after the clip before we do wrap up. Because I want to play all the clips. They're all very important. I want the audience to really check them all out. So go ahead, give up the website. So we're going to play the clip, and then when we come back, we'll wrap up and we'll go ahead and give them again. So if you missed them now, you can get them at the end of the show. Go ahead.
Wonderful. Well, anyone who is interested to learn about Falun Gong, or Falun Dafa, as it's also called, it's two names but the same practice. The exercises are free of charge. You can learn it all over the world, especially in the United States. The website is www.falundafa.org. You can also go learn about the persecution and what Falun Gong is in depth at faluninfo.net. That's FALUNINFO.net. Also, the reports are free of charge at endtransplantabuse.org and stoporganharvesting.org. I think those are the four websites you can get a plethora of information. And yes, please play the clip from Professor Wendy Rogers.
Here we go.
What seems to be unusual about China is that, and I think Ethan Gutmann makes this argument brilliantly in his book, is how the Chinese government have solved two problems at once. They've solved a problem of organ shortage along with a problem of dealing with a quite annoying dissident population by using the one to source the other. And it's done on such a wide level with involvement at all levels of government that it's state sanctioned. It's turned, what Ethan says, it's turned doctors into murderers, and used a health reason to persecute and kill a group that they're not happy with. It's extremely difficult to find evidence about what's happening in China because it is such a secretive system. At the moment, however, though, we've got 3 reports that have come out over a period of 10 years. The first in 2006, Bloody Harvest, by David Kilgour and David Mattis, used a wide range of evidence and particularly relied on phone calls and interviews and website scrutiny to look at what was going on in China to establish the nature of the trade there. Then Ethan Gutmann did his investigation called The Slaughter, which was published in 2014, And he used a different methodology. He interviewed people who'd come out of labour camps and put together a very detailed picture which he fitted into the political background of China, and built up a very compelling story of how the two things had come together, the persecution of the Falun Gong and the rise in transplant medicine. So that was two sources of evidence. Following that, in 2016, we've had a new report published called The Update, Bloody Harvest the Slaughter, The Update, which is available free to download. And this is an exhaustive report, 600 pages with 2,000 references. And in this report, the authors who joined forces, so we've got Mattis, Gutmann and Kilgour, have tried to document the extent of transplant activity in China using a number of innovative methods. So they've looked at the number of hospitals that are licensed to do transplants, the number of hospitals that are not licensed but are nonetheless doing transplants, the numbers of beds in the hospitals, the number of medical staff in the hospitals, reports of how busy the doctors are, reports of bed utilisation rates, and reports of profits being made by transplant in individual hospitals. In terms of withholding credibility from practitioners of Falun Gong just because they're practitioners of Falun Gong, it's an instance of what we call testimonial injustice. It's like not believing someone because of who they are rather than because of what they say and the reasons that what they say might be true. And again, I put it down to the skill of the Chinese government in demonizing the practitioners of Falun Gong within China, so that they're, as I understand, can be ostracized or considered to be bad citizens, bad people, and so you shouldn't believe anything they say. But they've also sold that to people who should be able to take a far more critical stance, who haven't been subject to years of Chinese brainwashing, and who should be able to say, okay, it doesn't really matter what this person's spiritual practices are. They're providing me with evidence, and I should listen to this evidence and take it at face value initially. Of course, you're sceptical if you think someone's trying to tell a story to further some political ends. But again, as Ethan's explained, there's no evidence that Falun Gong is a cult of any sort. There's no evidence of political action to try and bring down the Chinese government. There's no evidence of anything other than a deep desire to be left alone to practice their spiritual beliefs in peace and to not be locked up and murdered. And so it seems a very unpleasant and evil form of victim blaming to withhold credibility just because people are practitioners. As far as I'm aware from what's been reported in the media is that Professor Jeremy Chapman regarded it as a load of Falun Gong propaganda. I don't think that was the exact words he used, but that was the intent of the words. And I'd read a lot of media at the time, and I can't remember where the other article was, but the other article was a spokeswoman for the Chinese government, and it was almost word for word exactly the same as what Professor Chapman said, and that just made me wonder who was briefing him. Well, the appropriate response would be to at least engage with the literature. I think to have a look at it. I don't expect them to get translators and check every single source, but to have a look at what's there and then to engage in a dialogue to say, well, there's a problem with using bed utilisation rates because of this, or actually transplant doctors, do more transplants than that or do fewer. Just to look at the different indicators that Mattis, Kilgour and Gutmann have put together and to say, well, these ones stand up, these ones don't stand up. This is how you could get better information. If they're interested in knowing what's going on in China, they need to be part of the solution in actually identifying what's going on rather than just dismissing attempts. Francis Delmonico said under oath at the US Senate committee hearings that TTS had no access at all to the military hospitals, and I think he said as well that they're aware that they are problematic or similar words. What TTS needs to do to engage with the report is to let go of the idea that this is Falun Gong propaganda. I think there are enough credible accounts, there are enough questions from credible and multiple sources to say, okay, there seems to be a real problem here and it's a terrible problem. How can we help to try and sort out what is actually going on? Because we can't act effectively unless we know what's going on. I think TTS is somehow, for some reason, convinced by the Chinese government or their representatives that this is propaganda, that it's political, and that TTS doesn't want to get involved in anything that's seen as China's internal politics. But if people are being murdered for their organs, you've immediately got a close connection between transplantation and politics. You can't just say we're only interested in transplantation, not in politics.
Mitchell, let me tell you something, and I've often I've had this thought when I hear about atrocities like these, and serial killers, and all these evil deeds that go on in the world. And I often think, how can people in general take part in these things? How can you be a doctor who you become a doctor because you want to save lives, take part in things like this? We're talking about this is something that on a massive scale involves a lot of people that you would think would say, you know what, I'm not doing this. Why is it, to me, it always boggles my mind how more and more individuals go along with this stuff. And I know money's involved, and a lot of them might have a gun to their head, and I understand all that. But, at the same time, it seems like there would have to be a lot of these people that are going along with it because they really just have no conscience.
Yes, they have no heart. They have no soul. They've sold it.
At all.
What is a man who profits the whole world and loses his soul in the process? It's all now money. It's narcissism. It's apathy. No one cares. Not that no one cares, but very few people can put it on the line for other people and sacrifice. Right. And what is it? We've reached a point, Angel, and everybody, that the morality has sunk worse than hell, and we become our morality, our hearts have become worse than beasts. And we are in Revelations. I'm not a religious person, but I know that in the Bible they talk about the red dragon, the Revelations, the final judgment. I mean, and if this coronavirus jumps to the States and jumps to Africa, I mean, you're gonna have more pandemic. I've just received intel that over 250 million people now are quarantined in China. 50,000 a day are being infected. 1.5 million at least have been infected now. 50,000 deaths, and the death toll is rising. They're burying the bodies at a 24/7 hour rate a day. And the Vietnamese government have been secretly and quietly and covertly creating field hospitals. There are very short supply of masks. The food is running out in China. People, the economy is grounded to a standstill. And yeah, this is insane.
This is ugly. Yep.
Yeah, and this is all caused by the immorality of human beings. I mean, and like I said before, when the very people were sworn to protect humanity from complete disaster, they are the ones that are implementing the disaster on a large scale. So God be with you, and I wish like more people like you, if there's any other hosts out there, podcast hosts, or if you know anybody, Angel, that is willing to listen to me and clarify the truth about the Falun Gong. If there's any professors that are listening or CEOs that are listening, be careful doing business in China. Now there's no way in doing business in China because everything's collapsed now. I mean, there's no way they can contain this virus. And no one's going to go to work and do this. I mean, because after this pandemic, now there's going to be pandemonium, and pandemonium is fear on a scale we've never seen in our lives. And I just came back from the States celebrating wonderful Christmas with my family in Atlanta, Georgia. I am an American citizen, born in South Africa but raised in America, and I might have to leave in the next month or two if I don't find anything suitable here. I've got to go back to America because, and I might be quarantined for 2 or 3 weeks because I'm coming back from Asia.
Right.
But
yeah.
Again, let me give you the websites and I'll call it a day with you, Angel.
Yeah, you got to be very careful before you give out the websites. Let me tell you, you're in a very dangerous part of the world, and God bless you, man. And whatever God you believe in, and anybody out there, I'm agnostic myself, but I'm open to interpretation or whatever that deity might be. So whoever you pray to at night, man, bless your heart because you're doing amazing work, and please give out the websites where people can follow what's going on with the Falun Gong. And also, I want to make sure that we have you back on. I know we spoke about you doing the video show, and I want to have you on that so we can do a follow up on this because This is not something that's going to go away. The Falun Gong, I think it's going to intensify over the next year. This whole, the coronavirus and this genocide, it's just going to get more and more intense. So please give out those websites one more time.
Absolutely. Well, for those who want to really learn an amazing spiritual practice, and like I said, the exercises are free of charge, wonderful for the body, and that's why they're being killed for their organs, because they're so healthy. falundafa.org, that's for the exercises and the contacts throughout the world. There are many people who would love to share the exercises with you. I taught them in the yoga studios when I was in California, and people loved them. From all walks of life, and also to learn more about what Falun Gong is and the persecution, you can go to faluninfo.net, faluninfo.net, also stoporganharvesting.org, where all the reports are, the confirmed reports that are proving that this, or have proven beyond a reasonable doubt and a shadow of a doubt that this is going on in China, that the Falun Gong have been vilified and dehumanized and killed for their organs, at endtransplantabuse.org. Also, if someone is an avid reader of China and wants to really learn about the real truth about China behind the Red Wall, there's a great publication free of charge. You can watch it or you can read it at the www.nine, that's 9, written, the word 9, like the number 9, but word, 9commentaries.com, www.9commentaries.com. And, folks, discern for yourself. Thank you for allowing me to share with you and be a voice of support for the Falun Gong and for people around the world who are suffering this terrible tragedy, especially in China. Thank you, Angel, and God bless you, Angel. You're an angel, Angel.
I try to be, but let me ask you: is there a way for folks to follow you, particularly, so they can, keep up to what you're doing? Because like I say, you're doing amazing research, and is there any personal links that you want to give out also?
Not particularly. Look, I'm just I'm a spiritual warrior. I'm a simple warrior on the front lines. Don't worry about me. I'm on Facebook. I'm not really doing much on Instagram or other places. I just try and email. If anyone wants to email me and say, look, Angel, I've got 300 students in my class. We're doing a Chinese study. I would like Mitch to come on and via Skype to share about this. Or if there are any other hosts out there that would like to have me on their podcast, Angel, you have my information. My email is mgerber444@gmail.com. Again, I don't do this for money. I'm actually pretty much a starving spiritual warrior right now, so it's pretty tough. It's very, very tough. I only got about $1,000 in my bank account for rent and for food, and I'm just doing it because all the schools are closed right now. I was teaching to make a little ends meet. I was teaching little 1-year-olds, 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, and 4-year-olds English. Just holding those little beautiful beings of light. They're so special, and that's what I do it for. I do it for the children. I protect children from child traffickers. I expose this evil of forced organ harvesting. I was a bodyguard for 5 years. But again, what is a man who cannot make the world a better place? And the greatest honor in life is to not only die a noble death, but to live one as well. So before you leave this earth, everybody, do something important. Go sign the petition to support the Falun Gong. That's one thing you can do. I know it seems not a lot, but again, it's very important. Even if you, as a power of attorney, you're signing a will, you're signing a document, you're signing a check, you're signing a mortgage. It's very, very important. It's a serious thing in life. The pen is always more mighty than the sword. So go to the website, stoporganharvesting.org, sign the petition, and so you can stand on the right side of destiny. It definitely helps energetically, and in the eyes of the universe or the creator, it's definitely something that shows that you care and you give a damn. So thank you, Angel, and thanks everybody for listening, and Godspeed, and I hope to, if they don't kill me the next time around, I'll see you on the show.
Definitely. Stay alive, stay healthy, and please, let's stay in communications.
Absolutely. You know where I am, so God bless. And if anyone wants to reach out, please contact Angel. Contact me at mgerber444@gmail.com. That's mgerber, mgerber 444@gmail.com. I'm really in waiting. I'm a machine, and I'm Lionheart. So come on, I'm right here.
Doing amazing work, my friend. We'll talk soon.
Take care, Angel.
Good night.